Councillor Bodden, Councillor Hallahan, all in favor? Carried. Disclosure of pecuniary interest, if any. Councillor Slate.
Yeah, Reva, you have two conflicts of interest, not pecuniary, but just conflicts of interest. One, with any discussion about the potential donation to the hospital, as I am a sitting member on the foundation board because I'm a non-voting member, because I'm the chair of the Wingman District Hospital Board of Directors, as well as check number 42564 that's made out to Eric Cox Sanitation. That vendor is a client of mine on my corporation, bookkeeping corporation, so I'm declaring a conflict and will not be voting on the consent agenda.
Okay. Okay, none other noted. So moving to the consent agenda. Is there any comments? To approve. Moved by Deputy Reeve Campbell, seconded by Councillor Bodden. All in favor? Carried. 4.2.1, Director.
That takes us right down to
Okay, in the consent agenda. Okay, the 5.1, Donna White, Director of Finance.
Okay, thank you, Reeve Vincent and Council. And welcome to everyone here tonight. And again, I apologize for having my back to you, but and hopefully you can see what's going on up on the presentation screen. So I just wanted to let you know where we left off. So last week was our meeting devoted fully to our public input, and we went into all the details of the budget and the highlights. So at the end of that meeting, we had 2 unresolved issues, and those are the 2 issues that we're going to be discussing tonight. So we're not going back through the whole budget or any of that tonight. We're just going to try to, our goal tonight is to get the budget into a format where we can, with any revisions or whatever we have to do tonight, to be able to make a recommendation that staff can bring forward a bylaw to adopt the tax rates at the May meeting. So as I said, and so therefore the budget is on the website. It has been all along throughout all our meetings as we have progressed since the early part of the new year. So I didn't make more copies again tonight since we're not going to be finished depending on what happens tonight. But again, if anybody wanted any further details, you're certainly welcome to contact me. So as I said, tonight we have 2 unresolved issues, and we're going to focus on those 2 issues. And as a recap, at last meeting, we were at a 4.86% spending increase in dollars. We took out $14,500 in various donations, and that only brought us down to 4.54. So those donations are big donation requests this year because we have a whole new policy. We are spending a little bit more time on it than what we have in previous years. And our donations really have been divided into 2 groups. Some of them, the smaller group, which we had historically budgeted about $11,800. We are looking for a motion to adopt that revised listing dealing with those small donations, and that listing was in your budget package as well. So we're going to deal with that one and get that one cleared up. And then as well, we're going to look at the hospital donation, which was one of our remaining outstanding issues. So as I just wanted to point out before we hit that one as well, I think at the office we've had many letters for and against this issue, and so I'm sure that council will have some discussions on that before we can make a decision there. And again, on the donations, we were at $92,300. So with the 14.5 off, that brings us down to $77,800. And as I said, that brings us to, we removed just less than 1/3 of a percent at 14,000. So it certainly didn't bring down any significant increases. Also, as noted, I have implemented the education rates. The education rates had been filed at about 4 on the evening of our last budget meeting. So they have now been incorporated into here. And as we discussed, when you see the totals at the end, there is a slight downward trend because of reflection of those rates. So we are also going to be looking at the BIA budgets tonight. So one of the changes I have made that has no effect on the budget is relating to the Wingham BIA. We have a transfer from reserve of the $9,200 that council had put away a couple of years ago to contribute toward the snowflake lights. So that's part of the BIA report and has no effect on the percentages in the budgets. So the first thing I'd like to move towards is the donation recap, and that, again, I know the print is small, but on the listing that we discussed last meeting, what I call the small donations or the historical donations. So that is your listing up there of 11,800. Some of those requests are pending. So if the requests actually don't come in, then they wouldn't automatically get that, and council would still have the opportunity to approve that. So that leaves you $1,275 unallocated in that particular line for anything else that might come up for this year. So that was a list. There was a lot of discussion back and forth, and I know that was kind of a lengthy discussion, but this is how we ended up as staff interpreting what you said. So the first motion, if council would like to discuss this list any further, and if you have any questions, we'll answer them. And if not, then I would like to ask for a motion to adopt the first set of donations as decided at the last meeting. So are there any questions? That's the 11,800, which were the smaller donations that were, and that included $1,275 unallocated at this point. Is there any questions? Can we call for a motion then if there are no
You
questions?
have a question, Larry, or?
No, I'm just, again, just to clarify, we're just dealing with 11,000.
Yes, the top half are smaller historical donations.
Deputy Reeve
We'll
Campbell,
get a motion to accept that portion.
that portion. Seconder,
Second.
Councillor Vodden. All in favor? Carried.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so we'll move to the bottom half of the donation listings. So there's not much left there from a result of the decisions that you made at last meeting. At this moment, we still have the $1,000 in for Rural Talks to Rural, the 1419 retreat. And that one, my understanding, was approved at $1,000. I don't know if anybody has anything further to comment on that one. If not, okay. So the decision then that we are looking for you to make this evening then is your decision regarding the $65,000 that is left in this year's budget for the Wingham Hospital. Is there any discussion on that?
Deputy Reeve,
Are we looking at that, that's a 5-year term?
Well, what the last that was said was 65,000 each year for 7 years, to total 455,000. So I think just to reiterate the comments from last meeting, there was no one here who disputed the importance of the hospital. That certainly was on everyone's mind of the economic development that the hospital brings to the community. And as I was saying, council has received a number of letters both for and against this issue. This particular issue seems to be one of those that are pretty evenly split. There doesn't seem to be a clear consensus of the people one way or the other. So it is a tough decision and you're not going to make everybody happy. But the thing for this evening is to make a decision and stand with that decision and be able to move the budget forward. So it's certainly not an easy decision in any way.
Well, let's start conversation amongst the council that from what I have got in correspondence, that it would lead me to believe that maybe 50,000 a year for either 5 or 6 years in comparison to what some of the other municipalities in the area have looked at. That I think it's a mistake not to show support for the hospital. I know that there's a lot of us are making private donations as well. But as the host for the hospital, I think there's a certain responsibility given to us. When I take a look at people using the hospital, there's a number of the other municipalities don't use the emergency near as much as North Huron. But when you get a number of municipalities using 6 to 8% of the use, that I think it's incumbent upon a bit of help from some of the other municipalities as well to get to the 4 million. I'm throwing that out as discussion.
I'm supportive of a donation to the hospital. Did a lot of thinking since the last council meeting, and that's been my decision. And I will put a motion forward to support it. I think as a community, when I say community, it's everyone in North Huron. I think it's an opportunity to donate to the hospital. I know that it was noted that it should be private donators and private donations of maybe larger amounts or business donations of larger amounts, but we're also including everybody in the community at whatever that dollar would be in their taxes. And I would sure think that it would defer any corporation or anyone that wanted to give more, defer that. So if somebody else wants to make a comment, I'm going to make a motion sometime here. Go ahead.
Go ahead and make the motion.
I'm going to make a motion that we give $50,000 for 5 years.
Bill?
I would actually like to second it, but I'd like to do it over 6 years.
Were you seconding or?
I would like to second and we can discuss.
Okay, comment now, Bill?
Okay. I would actually like to increase it to a 6-year period would be my preference, but I am agreeable to 50,000 over 5 years. I had as many conversations as I could one-on-one with people over the last week since our last discussion. And unfortunately, the hospital is one of those things we may disagree with the way the province funds these things, but that's life. We are not going to change that overnight, and the hospital is a critical component of our community. It's a large boost to the economy. There are over from the information I've received, over 50,000 patient, and, I'm not going to say doctor, but patient-staff relationships occur every year in that hospital. And that's a pretty vital sign when you have that many people dependent on that hospital from both within North Huron and outside, and other communities from outside North Huron are contributing to it. So I'm afraid that everything that I saw or came to the majority of the decision that was given to me was that we support the hospital. And so I'm in favor. I'd like to see us get at least 300,000 and do that over 6 years. But I would live with the 5 years that Councillor Hallahan has put forward.
Deputy Reeve?
The 4.54 has no hospital donation in it. Is that correct?
No, the hospital donation is in there
It's in that, it's at that.
at
4.5.
65,000.
At 65.
Sorry, could I the 65,000 is where?
Is still in the budget.
Oh, okay.
It's still in the budget and we're sitting at 4.54. We were at 4.86 last meeting. You dropped out 14,500 for various other donations and left the 11,800 plus the 1,000 for R2R and the $65,000 in, which adds up to the 77,800 that you have right now.
Councillor Wadden?
I've had a lot of mail and a lot of calls, both ways, for and against. I've been against this donation. I think we are not a health unit. We are not a health related. We have more municipal infrastructure and program issues than we can handle now. So I feel reluctant to accept a bill sent to us without any consultation. We are like guests being invited to a dinner and we find out there's no place for us at the table, and we're just going to pick up the tab, a large tab. So I think I will not be voting in favor of this.
I think that the hospital is a strong economic force in the municipality, but I'm not sure that is the municipality's job to help fund the hospital. I think that there's other areas that we can put our money towards. And I know it's a wonderful service and I'm glad that we have it, but I think there's other things in this municipality that need to be taken care of first.
Everybody spoken that wants to speak? Any more information coming forward, or do I call it?
So just to be clear then, that was 250,000 over 6 years, which would be 41,667 a year. Oh, you're now 50 over 5?
That's the motion.
The motion was 50 over 5.
And I'm not sticking to the 5 years either. If it's 6 and that suits, that's fine too. But
The motion on the
it's
floor is for 5.
250,000 over 6.
All in favor of the motion? Carried. Okay,
So that's 50,000 included in this year's budget then.
that's
So we would be able to take 15,000 out of here because we had 65. Okay, so I'm gonna make a few changes there. And then if we can go on to the other issue, which was Councillor Hallahan had brought forward some concerns in regard to the East Wallenosh Road. So certainly no one disagrees with that. And we wanted to tackle this issue and come to consensus on how we can move the budget forward tonight and with some good options or discussions relating to this matter. So I don't know if you have some suggestions, Ray, or we have a number of options we could discuss. Would you
You can
like,
start off with your options. You're asking me, Donna, for projects, for capital projects?
well, I guess first off, I was looking for clarification as to what did you really, what was your request and specific request that you were asking for last week?
Well, I was just, and this probably has to do with the other group that's coming in too, is the fact that when we looked at the budget, we were only allocated $15,000 to the East Monash Ward for capital, where I think, and as I said right on the start, not to tear the municipality apart, but if you got 415,000 or 300, I guess it's 300,000 for construction or for Westmoreland.
Right.
And my figures have to back in from, but
And we have 95 in for Arthur Street.
yeah, so that adds up, whatever it adds up, and Patrick Street, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So that adds up to which, roughly?
The total of it?
Yeah,
600,000.
so I'm just saying that with the issues maybe of maintenance in municipality, plus the fact of saying we're not getting anything in that ward for capital, then I'm wondering if we cannot change things around a little bit here, or certainly we don't want to increase taxes, but I made the motion just to do that, I guess, but in some fairness, I guess, is what I'm saying. Maybe Trevor's got a question there.
Trevor?
So the question I have is, if we did none of it, so let's didn't do Westmoreland, didn't do Patrick, didn't do Arthur, and took all that roads out and then roads need study, determined what the priority was, the priority could come back that those three infrastructures could be the priority. So the question is staff determining that's the priority at this point, and the roads need study is going to determine what the rest of the priorities are for the municipality? I guess that's where I'm sitting. Because next year, if in the budget, if there's 300 or 400,000 for East Walnut Ward because the road need study says there is, then I guess the conversation is, I'm hoping that kind of alleviates your question or your problem with this year's budget.
Well, it does, and I think it talks, and hopefully this is some consolation to these people from East Monash Ward tonight is, and what stemmed it was, when I look at it and it's nothing there, that certainly brought to my attention, and then I mentioned it at that budget meeting, could there be something done? Could we address anything? And nothing was done. Like, it never changed for the second budget meeting, so this is why I'm bringing it forward. And I can realize, and if just what you said, that if this needs study comes through, that's going to explain, there's going to be a plan with this needs study, this road study, right? We have nothing. There's nothing out there to even say when we're going to get any road construction done or when we're going to get any tire and chip done. These people are waiting on something. So if we had some sort of, I know there's going to be a big project here, a big project there, or whatever, but we're going nowhere. We don't know where the projects are going to be. So, and that's what you're saying. I can realize, Trevor, with this needs study, if it's any consolation down the road, I'm certain that Kelly, I asked him and they said, what do you want done this year, Ray? Or what do you expect this year, Ray, to be done? I can probably think he's got a list as long as his arm for that ward. Probably, first one would be finish what you did last year, would be the first. So that's where I'm coming at now. I think there's enough damage done out there on some of the roads right now that there's going to have to try and get at least some into that capital, if at all possible this year.
Sure.
I think Kelly actually wants.
Yeah, I just wanted to touch on that, Ray. I understand why everyone's here tonight, and I can appreciate that. At the start of our budget deliberations, we did have money in there for East Wallace to move forward with the next tar and chip program. As you can hear this evening, the taxes were up that much higher that we had to start cutting things and moving stuff around. So Arthur Street happened to take a higher priority at that time. So the $95,000 went to Arthur Street, and I think you guys knew that because it was put into the budget that way. And to move forward on the next project, Moncrief Road is where we were moving forward on the next project for engineering and any construction that needed to be done on that. Continue on with the tar and chip up the Moncrief Road. That's where we were moving forward for the next 3 years, actually. So
I'm saying that in the last year, there was $90,000 allocated for the Moncrief Road.
and that came out of your maintenance budget, which you made a point of last meeting, that the 90,000, like it wasn't capital, it was maintenance. So
This was put in as
this was
maintenance.
capital, yeah.
But there was 30,000 in the toll too.
Yeah.
Pulled off that project, right? So putting all this together, it to me, puts up a red flag that we gotta,
And I think the roads need study, like Trevor says, we'll touch on where we need to go with the priorities. So like, I mean, you're not gonna satisfy everyone because we do have 3 different municipalities within the one. And the needs are different for each one of them. And the Blythe job was put on the back burner for 4 and 5 years until we actually accumulated enough money to go ahead with that project. So it's a matter of not having any money to do the work that we need to do. I mean, we all in this room, we all know there's lots of work to be done out there. We just are having a tough time getting money.
well, I think anybody would know that would bring something to your attention anyway with the allocation of it. And I guess in all fairness, I think when we do any budget deliberation at all, you know, I know 60% of the taxes come from Wingham. 23% of the taxes come from East Wabash, and 17% of the taxes come from Blythe. So at least get us into that equation somewhere, so that there is a bit of a balance. And I'm not saying for $2,000 or $5,000 but we're gonna have to try and get it evened out here someplace. But with the needs, if we have our needs study on the roads, that will certainly help. That will tell us where the big project is, but it'll also tell these people down the road when their project's going to be done, I think. Does that sound reasonable?
Donna, did you want to?
Right, so, and that's just exactly what we need to talk about, Ray, is because we definitely want to get back on our tar and chip program. As I said, it was in at the, last fall when we started the budget. And then because of a result of the land strategy with Arthur Street, then it's $95,000. So it got traded for the tar and chip. So we have some options. So let's figure something out. We need to come up with a solution. So if we leave the budget as it is now, there is $4,300 in there for engineering, which Kelly can get started at doing some engineering work on the tar and chip. And we also have a transfer to reserve of $54,500, which again, we could earmark that for the tar and chip program. And then once the roads need study is done, we can see where we're at, and that may give us a solution there. You could reevaluate the Arthur Street project to whether you want to keep it in. I mean, that was a high priority from the land strategy, so it's going to be difficult to pull it at this point. You could also add 1.5% to 2% to the taxes, which would give you like 67,000 to 90,000, somewhere in that range to undertake a separate tar and chip program. Or you could take some additional money out of reserves to add to the 54.5 and still do a project this year. So as I said, to summarize, we can earmark the 4,300 and the 54.5 that's in the budget this year for East Wawanosh and tackle some of that work in conjunction with the roads needs next year. So that wouldn't change anything in the budget, but it would get us our good data ready to undertake our tar and chip first thing in the spring. And as I said, your other options are adding to the taxes or reevaluating your other projects or taking money out of reserves to add what we have. So those are basically about the 4 ideas. Now, council may have their own ideas on what you want to do.
Deputy Reeve?
And to Kelly, those roads that we want to tar and chip are really not ready to be tarred and chipped until there's work done on these roads. Is that what we have in the budget this year? Would that get another mile and a quarter ready? Or is that still not enough to get some of these roads ready for tar and chip?
Well, we definitely get us started on that. And we were allowed to come back to council if it's over the 54,000 to get the next stretch ready. And we would be able to fill it out of reserves. So we have some reserves.
You're saying how much, Kelly, to get this ready? You're thinking here?
Well, there's 54.5
In
earmarked
the-
right now to go into reserves. So if we just don't put it into reserves, start the road project, and if it comes out that it's more than the 54.5, to get the next block ready for tar and chip, and we can fill up the reserves. So then we'll be ready to tar and chip in 2017. But then we'll continually have to move forward a block like you had suggested. A block at a time to get it ready for the tar and chip. So like, I mean, it's a long process. It's not something, unless you're gonna spend millions, couple of millions. So.
Are any of those options workable, Ray, or did you have something else, or does council have anything else for direction?
Brock first.
I know nothing about road maintenance or management, so I can ask a really naive question, I hope. I went on a little tour of East Wawanosh yesterday, and I discovered some of the foibles that people were talking about at the last meeting. And in one area, I was going along at a fair speed, and all of a sudden, I hit washboard, and I think the car was more in the air than it was on the road for a little while, until I got slowed down. It seemed to me that there's an awful lot of difference among roads in terms of condition. And so my question is, to what extent are there issues like that that could be corrected by regular maintenance, stuff like grading and all of that sort of thing, to get things back into a more acceptable level, at least on a temporary basis, and before any capital issue needs to come up? I don't know. I don't know whether that's a valid question or not. And it struck me that I saw a lot of roads that needed tender loving care right now.
Is that a question to you? Let me answer that. We do have a maintenance budget that we spend in East Wawanosh yearly, and we split the township in half for gravel, maintenance gravel, and for calcium, we do the entire township every year. So those issues are sometimes weather related, sometimes they're operating related. And I can tell you we're working diligently this last a while, because last Monday at this time we were ice blading, and the last few days we've been grading and getting the roads ready for
I saw some work.
calcium and for the spring gravel. So it's an ongoing battle. It's not like asphalt. It's not like tar and chip. We do have lots of maintenance. We have very expensive equipment to use on those roads.
When we do our roads needs study as well, that is going to be identified in that roads needs study. So there may be some sections that just need resurfacing, maintenance. There may be some sections that are identified that they need a full reconstruction or spot reconstruction. So we're going to have a better idea once that study is completed, which sections need attention and exactly what the requirements are.
Bill,
Would it be possible to allocate an amount in the budget for East Wawanach for a turn chip program without designating a road at this point in time? 2 years ago, I kind of said I didn't think Lime Creek was a good place to start. The Nature Center Road, I think, was been far better value to the municipality as a whole because of its condition. And I drove down it today, and things haven't got any better. And I would like to see the road needs study completed to determine which road. Is that a possibility that we can say we're going to allocate some money to tar chip and we're not going to designate the road at this time? Can we have that kind of lead time?
I'm not certain, Kelly, have you been talking with them, or you're going to do an RFP for roads needs study? So whether we would get that out and back in time to get the study done within the time allotment for doing the tar and chip program. Are the tar and chip tenders out right now?
You're saying we have tenders out for tar and chip now?
I was told in speaking to the other two municipalities that are put out the tender, that if something is decided, we can always jump on the tender.
Or we're not obligated to that?
No.
So what you're saying then is we have to designate a road tonight if we're going to do a tar and chip? Yes or no? If we're going to do a tar and chip road?
Sorry, I would say for tender purposes, you wouldn't have to, because if they're just opening it up to us to say that we'll get the same unit price as the other tendering municipalities, the decision can be made at a later date, but it just depends on when the work is going to be done.
That's right. Like if the tender comes in that they're gonna start to do it in July, and we haven't got the road ready in July, then we can't tar and chip.
They haven't opened any tenders yet, so you don't know if it's up or down.
So then would it be possible to put this money in reserve into that? And then have more discussion as to whether we're going to use it after? But it's got to go in.
That's already earmarked for reserves, so we're fine with that, but we can earmark it reserves, tar and chip as well. So then we know that that money is going to be used in tar and chipping. We just gotta
if it was to go into reserves for what was viewed as, there's some of the early work on the roads needs studies, that if it was earmarked to do the most needed, would that be
Yes.
suitable to you?
Yes. That would be suitable for me.
Yeah, I think that from all this conversation, I think we really hit a seriously head as that we can't continue to substitute capital projects for capital projects. At the end of the day, and I've said it before prior to being a councillor, and I'll say it again, capital is easy to cut. It's the first thing, everybody talks about it, doesn't matter if it's a corporation or a municipality, the first thing to go is always capital projects. Where we need to look at, and we're doing that today, it's still a long process, but it takes a lot of time, is understanding our operating and figure out what things we need and what things we really need and what things we don't really need. Those are the things that are going to save us this discussion about us and them. Because let's be clear, that is what the conversation is. As much as I hate to say it, and as much as Ray, you don't want it to be about us and them, that is the conversation. Because wards are getting something and your ward is not. As much as I don't want to say that. That's the conversation.
And in all fairness, that doesn't need to be the conversation.
Right.
Everybody's used equal, and as I said on the equation, so.
But the conversation can be also about that is, this year, there's money earmarked in the capital for those 2 wards. Maybe next year, the conversation isn't about that. Maybe East Longnosh is the majority of that. We don't know. The conversation, we don't know until we get this study, and that's the conversation we talked about. But I think after today, we have to be pushing about where our base service needs are. And
That's all.
once we get recommendations from council or from staff about what those service requests are, we need to be very diligent to say, yeah, this is not really a need in the municipality anymore, and be done with it. So we need to figure out those things and be very, very diligent, because those are tough decisions, but we're gonna be here a year from now making the same difficult decisions about conversations about money when they're, from what everybody's saying, the money's gonna go the wrong way from the province. So let's move on to the conversation, but I think capital conversation substitutions are not where we need to go from now on.
So would you say then, to recap, Ray, then, that we have the $4,300 for engineering and the $54,500 for reserve, that we earmark that for the tar and chip program, and Kelly can start off doing some preliminary work on that, and then in conjunction with the roads needs study, then we'll figure out where we're at. But that money will be allocated for tar and chip.
And then that's fine at this point, but maybe there's other projects within the municipality besides tar and chip too that might have to be done. So I'm just saying, as long as that money is there, kept there, to use it, whether it be for tar and chip or whether it be for a road widening, but at least get a plan together as to what we're gonna do. That's a big thing.
Yeah,
And
and
I
that's
think
what we've
everybody
been,
would be happy.
yeah, that's what we've been working on for years, last couple of years
Yeah.
to get rolling, so. So are
But I
you,
mean, a plan and a construction plan as to what your actual projects are gonna be, and stay on it and do it. So, yeah, okay, that's fine.
well, the cautionary there though, Ray, I can tell you that you're not going to be able to afford to do all the projects on your
Exactly.
list,
I know.
because we're already so far behind, so. So we're
I
still
understand.
going to have to prioritize, because we're not going to be able to meet our infrastructure deficit needs that we have, but we need to keep moving in the right direction,
I
and
think
that,
so. I mean, you have to have a map of where you're going.
for sure.
Okay. Thank you.
So if that is satisfactory to all, then that doesn't make any change on this budget.
No.
We have the money there, we've all agreed, then it's earmarked for that. So the change that we would have had then would have been taking the hospital donation down from 65,000 to 50, so that 15,000 would have come out. So then that would put our spending increase at 4.21. That's going to give us only an extra 190,705 to work with this year. And I just wanted to flip over to your percentages so that you can see how the how it ended up. So I know, again, that's small up there, but how that would work out with the education rates, that a house assessed at our average of 161,000 then would pay this year in Wingham $56.78 more than last year, Blythe $70.89 more, and East Wawanosh $46.82 more than last year. So those percentages at the end, or when you add them in with the county and the school boards, are all less than 3%. So then I just want you to take a peek at some of the properties that you're used to seeing. So a Wingham property, this particular property assessed at 142,000 would have a $61.06 increase. This property at 167,000 would be $55.44. A property assessed quite a bit higher, one of the new ones up on Highland at 265,000 would have an increase of $97.03. Blythe, the property at 113,000 would see $40.01. One of the Newer homes in Blythe at 261,000 would see $74.03. Farm property on an East Wawanosh farm assessed at 70,700 would only receive a $12.91 increase, but on the farm, we have seen all these Wawanosh farmland, and it's taking far more significant jumps than our averages. So the farmland portion of that, which is at the lower rate, but would still see $186.28 increase. So that's where these particular example properties would turn out. That's where your tax rates would turn out. And that's where your total spending percentage increase would turn out.
So to be clear, with the county and the education, the rate increase is about inflation.
It's with all that they're all less than 3. 2.91 was the highest, I believe. You have 1.86 for Wingham, 2.72 for Blythe, and 1.90 for East Wawanosh, based on our average assessed house at 161,000. Any discussion? Is council satisfied with that? It's been a particularly difficult budget process this year. Not going to get any easier next year. One of the things last year, every year we try something new. So last year we had our post-budget brainstorming session, and we went to some service reviews and some good reports and gathered some information. This year, one of the things we'd like to do as part of that would be our building condition assessments, because that's part of our phase 2 asset management plan. And with that being coupled with our roads needs study, it's going to give, and the camera work that we plan to do, it would certainly give us some good condition data to be able to compile this phase of our asset management plan. So we are looking for clear direction this evening on whether we can move this budget forward. And if we can, then I would ask that council make a motion to adopt the budget as presented with the amendments tonight, and that staff be directed to prepare the bylaw at the next meeting. If that's not the case, then we need to clear up any questions or discussion that you have.
Make a motion that we move ahead.
Larry? Any further discussion?
Just one. With the changes that we made in the hospital donation, what difference does that make on it? Have you figured that out yet, Donald?
Yeah.
Those up there.
Just have to flip back so you can see it. The printing's small. So we went from 4.54 down to 4.21. Okay. So was there a motion put forward?
James and Yolanda moved and seconded it to move forward with those figures, Donna. All in favor? Carried.
Thank you very much, council.
Okay. 5.2. Sean Brumley wants to make a presentation.
So I'd like to thank council for allowing me to make a presentation tonight. My name is Sean Bromley. I'm a North Huron taxpayer and a water and sewer ratepayer. I'm also a water and wastewater operator with experience in water and wastewater compliance and contract administration. The purpose of my presentation tonight is to discourage council from entering into a negotiated contract with Veolia Water Canada and to consider alternatives that have not been presented as options. In the discussion portion of the CAO's report to council, recommended entering a negotiated contract with Veolia Water Canada. There were 7 items that were listed, all of which pointed to the need for Veolia. These 7 items, while valid reasons for needing either additional staff or contracting out the operation of a water and wastewater utility, they do not show reason or cause to consider only one contractor. There are other options that should be considered. I'd like to review the 7 reasons and comment on each. Firstly, Veolia Water Canada has experience with the existing systems as they were the operations and management group from 2004 to 2007. While this would give Veolia an edge in competing for an RFP or in competitive bid, really, this experience is a direct result of North Huron's existing staff switching to another contractor. Any current operating authority would likely also take those staff on board, so all of that experience would be transferred anyways. It's not necessarily exclusive to Veolia. Secondly, did they perform well during the 2004 to 2007 period? If so, why did North Huron choose to end its term with Veolia? Those same reasons are likely still applicable. Secondly, Veolia Water Canada currently provides ORO position for the North Huron water and wastewater systems. The only reason that Veolia currently fills the ORO position is because North Huron requested it. If you had requested another organization to fill the ORO position, they would have likely said yes to. So it's not really, again, it's not exclusive to just Veolia. Thirdly, Veolia Water Canada will transition existing North Huron staff to their employment and retain them in the same capacity, which is very desirable to the township because you want to retain system knowledge. It is important that system knowledge is retained. That's why other operating authorities besides Veolia also agreed to these same terms. Also noted was that the municipality of Morris Turnberry is operated, their water systems are operated by Veolia, and that it was stated in the report that Veolia would be able to provide potential savings because of the proximity. Other operating authorities also operate near North Huron. So without approaching someone else, you don't know what the cost savings they could offer as well. Veolia is not the only one that operates inside this province. The negotiated purchase method would save the cost of preparing terms of reference used, and transition could be done in a more timely manner due to the current management gap resulting from the vacant chief operator position. While completing an RFP process, there is no way to know what the savings on the contract would be. But knowing that the dollar value will be substantial for this contract, the cost of the RFP could be covered by the difference in competitive bidding. If the difference between the high and low bids was more than $75,000, which is more than possible on a contract that could be in the millions. It is unknown when the Director of Public Works hire will be finalized, and Veolia Water Canada has provided departmental management support via the former ORO North Huron Chief Operator. As same as Section 2, it was at the request of North Huron why they are doing this. It is to Veolia's advantage to agree. It is in their best interest to make the former operator available, not just North Huron's advantage. Other operating authorities have experts on their staff that are more than capable of transitioning the utility operations. The shared service pilot with Morris Turnberry will have a significant workload for the new Director of Public Works over the next 2 or 3 years to combine with the 2 existing Public Works Department, consolidate policies, service level, investigate and implement new processes. There is a high likelihood of vacancies within the utility department due to retirements within the project timelines. Outsourcing of system operations and maintenance will provide stability within the utility. As mentioned before, this is a good reason to restructure or contract out the operations, but not a valid reason for choosing just one operating authority over another. The real concern is that the ratepayers of the water and wastewater systems should have is that the CAO and council are about to pick their favorite contractor and reward them with a 5-year contract that could very easily end up being renewed and end up being 10, 15 years or indefinitely. Other issues with the report include, the report indicates that one of the contract provisions with Veolia is that the municipality would fund and oversee all capital projects. How could the municipality even follow through with this provision, since there will be no one on staff with the expertise and time to oversee street reconstruction, water tower project, sewage treatment plant, filter upgrades? How could the municipality possibly manage these projects? The answer is that they couldn't and would have to hire somebody. But this cost would not be included in the figures for contracting out the utilities, which increases the gap between contracting it out and performing the operations of the utility internally. Second note was the contract stipulated that they provide the use of municipal equipment to Veolia. Why would you let a contractor wear out your assets when in 5 years they could be gone? Let them use their own equipment. Thirdly, the report's financial impacts lead you to believe that the cost to contract out the utility is not that significant and that savings in other areas, such as value-added engineering, will offset some of the cost difference. What the report does not explain is that the numbers presented do not include the additional overtime that would be paid to the contractor for call-ins or emergencies. How will this additional cost affect the system's bottom line? It is difficult to project since it depends on how the facilities and infrastructures are operated and who would benefit the most from minimized overtime call-ins. If the water department was operated internally like it has been in the past, overtime costs are absorbed by banking hours and having operators take time off in lieu. Whereas if you have a contracted operating authority, you will pay that overtime cost and they will disperse it to their employees how they see fit. The report also makes mention that it was difficult for the previous chief operator to balance operational and management duties and that there was a chronic underestimation of internal resources. With this said, how could council be certain that the dollar values presented in the report are going to be accurate moving forward, since the utility was not operating at peak efficiency for several years? It's all well and good for me to say, just don't do it. So tonight I'm going to present a couple of options that I think would be more beneficial to the municipality than the current situation that we're in. So in my opinion, there are 2 alternate avenues. Firstly would be for North Huron to contract out the operations of the water and sewer treatment facilities through an RFP, but keep its current operators and staff and manage the water distribution and the wastewater collection systems which is basically your outdoor work. This will resolve a few of the items that contracting out the whole works creates. Firstly, municipality retains staff knowledge. The municipality will be able to supply staff to oversee capital projects. Unexpected overtime wages can be better managed since a majority of emergencies could be handled by the municipal operators. The municipality will have the staff necessary to administer a contract with an operator authority. Keeps the possibility of retaking full ownership of the utility in the future by retaining staff knowledge and through succession planning. Also, better response and flexibility in handling emergencies and unique situations, such as frozen water services, sewer backups, just for a couple examples. Currently, the existing staff complement for maintaining only half of the operation may be too high. However, it was noted staff retirement on the horizon and an appropriate level of staffing could be obtained in the near future. Another consideration that was mentioned in the CAO's report of transitioning the compliance role to a compliance operator role, which would make the department more manageable. Current staff could cover ORO duties, or one could be more easily hired since without the sewage treatment plants to operate, the MOE classification requirements for that type of operator would be lower. In my opinion, it would be, how it would work would be, currently you have 3 operators operating your system, and Veolia's providing an ORO. And you also have an administrative assistant working on compliance. And how I would see it would fit is that you could contract out a minimum number of staff to maintain the treatment facilities, so your well systems and your sewage treatment plants, and retain your own staff to look out after the outdoor work. And so basically Veolia, or your contractor, would come in and they would basically do rounds, maintenance, and any capital projects at the plant specifically. And the rest of your department would operate externally to that. So pump stations, your distribution, your collection systems. And what you would do is you would try to transition your compliance officer into an operator role after you had a retirement and reduce the staff size through attrition. Because as it stands right now, you don't have enough staff as it is. That was noted in the report. So to me, letting a contractor decide what the appropriate staffing level would be for just the facilities and then maintaining everything else on your own would be an ideal situation. Because if in the future you wanted to operate the systems in full again, you would need those operators to be able to take up the cause. And what you would do is you would just try to absorb the operators that the current operating authority was supplying. That's exactly how it happened here. They all worked for Veolia. North Huron wanted to take it over. You absorbed those employees into your system and started operating it. But if you only had to reabsorb 1 or 2 staff members to make it work down the road, that's a lot easier than reabsorbing 5 or 6 people that may decide, well, I'm just going to go somewhere else, and then you're short-staffed and you're stuck contracting it out again. The second opinion, if it is the council's decision that the whole of the water and wastewater utility needs to be contracted out, then do it right the first time and complete the selection for a contractor through a competitive bidding process. There's absolutely no valid reason that any one contractor should be selected the way it's occurred so far. If Veolia truly is the best selection, then let that determination be by comparing them to others and give everyone a fair shot. That way you could tell a ratepayer with a high level of certainty that the right contractor was selected and what the reasons for that selection were. A couple of general comments.
Point of order. That how much more have you got? Because you've
1 paragraph.
okay.
In addition to the information presented so far, I feel it is worth mentioning It is interesting how Wingham finds its water tower in poor condition, such poor condition, and possibly in need for replacement. And now needs to scramble to recover. The American Water Works Standard for the inspection of water storage facilities recommends that these types of facilities be inspected internally every 5 years. Since Veolia was the contractor prior to North Huron, it would lead one to believe that they did not notice the degradation and advise the municipality to plan accordingly. This action would have alleviated a lot of financial strain from the municipality. Is this the kind of performance that the ratepayers in North Huron are going to expect from the proposed contractor? Nobody is perfect, and that is why it is very crucial for the proper selection of a contractor take place. To close, I ask you consider what I have explained to you tonight and implore you to think of one or two good reasons why council should approve a contract for the water and wastewater operations tonight. If you have any questions, I will try to answer them.
Thank you for your presentation. I know council had information available to them. You did not, so that there's a lot of things that council looked at definitely differently than you did. Thank you.
I would like to give you a response. That's why we do like to have presentations given to us in advance, because it's very difficult to respond to something that lengthy without us having it in advance. And we didn't have a copy of that presentation. So you do make a number of points in there that I'm able to respond to, but probably not right now. We do have delegations present. But I know, Sean, you and I have had many good conversations over the past couple of months, and I'd be happy to talk to you and provide a response to some of your inquiries there.
Okay. Can I just say one thing? I'd just like to say I tried to have this presentation available, except for the report wasn't available until the 4th in the agenda package, and that would only leave me like less than a week to have something ready for Wednesday afternoon. So for someone to manage that, that's not on staff or have some sort of vested interest in the municipality is short order. So for that, I apologize.
Moving on to 5.3. It's listed as residents of East Wawanach. I'm not sure who's making the presentation.
Mr.
Diana?
Reed, I am. Councilors, staff, I am Diana Robinson, and I'm the spokesperson for the signers of a petition complaining about the conditions of our rural roads in the ward of East Wawanach. And right now, I would like to apologize. I am the spokesperson, but I am not the hearing person. I could not hear the conversation that was going on over here in the corner during the budget meeting. I understand you were talking about our roads. Anyhow, all the signers are residents of the ward, visitors of the ward, or people with business in the ward. The petition was started as a complaint about Nature Center Road, and it soon escalated to include all the gravel roads in the ward. The petition asked for a hardtop road, but a well-constructed gravel road with a good base and regular maintenance is better than a tar and chip road full of potholes. We know that there is to be a change in the works on how services are to be provided, but we need maintenance on our roads now. I'd like to congratulate those who worked this past weekend, Saturday, quite late through the night, grading the roads. It has made a big difference, but there's still room for improvement. We do thank you for the start. As to what we want, we would like to have roads in a condition that driving on them is not like driving on an obstacle course. There is there in our municipality a bylaw for minimum maintenance standards for our roads? And if so, is it followed? How often are our roads patrolled? Is there a long-term plan for maintenance? And sometimes we wonder, is there accountability? You, councillors, have asked for our help at the polls, and now we're asking for your help. Thank you. That's it. Our roads are deplorable. Thank you.
Okay. Well, is there any questions for Diana or?
Thank you for that.
Well, I think we understand one another. Ray?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I know that there are some of you here that live in these councillors don't live on our roads. They have the privilege of living on a paved road. It was nice to hear that Mr. Bogdan has taken a ride. It's nice to know that you know what our roads are like. I appreciate all the work that has to be done, but couldn't we be just graded once in a while? Couldn't the potholes be filled in a little bit once in a while? And at a speed that doesn't cause a washboard road?
Okay. I will allow the second person to speak. Tim Walden wanted to make a comment.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Tim Walden. I'm another resident of East Wallinosh Ward. Diane made a lot of the good introduction points for our delegation, but I'd like to make a couple more. The quality of the roads in East Wallinosh were never a question with the now retired staff maintaining them. The problem is unqualified, untrained, unaccountable staff with lack of supervision. Roads are a liability waiting to happen. If the township is sued because somebody loses control and either can get seriously harmed or killed, it will cost the township more than properly maintaining the roads. What we're not asking for capital dollars, we're asking for operational dollars to be allocated properly, have the staff maintain the roads properly. As a comment was made in the gallery, the grader was working at 8:15, 9:30 at night grading the roads. This is not safe practice. I followed him down the road and he wasn't even lowering the blade low enough to cut out any of the washboards or the potholes. As soon as it rains, those problems are going to persist again. This is complete misuse of taxpayers' dollars. It was just smoothing over the problem, and they may not be back for months. I drove to work today. I work in Kitchener. I drove through Huron East and I drove through Wellesley Township. In both cases, I saw two graders following one another, creating a windrow of gravel at the proper depth so they were cutting out these problems and then putting the gravel back over. This is the way the roads are supposed to be done. They were never a problem when some staff that are retired now maintain them. All we're asking for is accountability. Councillor Seat, you bring up the roads needs assessment. I'm unfortunately going to have to speak on behalf of East Wallinosh residents. I work for a municipality, well, the Region of Waterloo, and I know how these things go. So when a roads needs assessment's done, they're going to look at things like infrastructure underneath the roads. And yes, roads with infrastructure underneath them are going to take priority over rebuilding a gravel road. Cut plain and simple. So everybody from East Wallinosh may as well hear it now. That's what's going to happen. So even more dollars are going to be allocated to the town of Wingham, which is fine. There's crippling infrastructure that needs to be addressed as well. But as Councillor Hellahan has pointed out, there should at least be some sort of proportionate money spent for each ward, for the capital projects at least. Just to wrap things up, if I could be provided the municipal bylaw for road maintenance, I would appreciate it. If somebody could, I was looking on the website, I couldn't locate it. If somebody could point me in the right direction, I would appreciate it.
Were you going to leave those pictures or,
Would you like me to share some of these pictures of?
not right now, but, if council could say, look at them
I'll say after. if anybody
sometime
wants
and
to
I
show
can
them.
get them back to you.
There's at least, well, there's two main, I only drove up Marnock line. This was, I believe it was, Sunday. It was Sunday I drove up Marnock line and then I came back on Curry. So I didn't even drive the whole township and I saw two major deficiencies where that could very possibly cause somebody to lose control into a steep ditch and possibly get killed. These are serious issues, people. If somebody sues you because of that, the township's looking at multi-million-dollar lawsuits. That far outweighs the few $100s it would cost to have somebody properly grade the roads. But yes, I will hand these in after.
Right,
Yeah, just a comment. Yes, I am very supportive of the people here tonight. I know there are problems. It has to be addressed, and how they're going to be addressed, I'm sure through, maybe through some training, definitely some experience. Getting between capital projects and maintenance it's all just money. Yeah, we're having a little trouble getting between, describing them as such, as each, but we know that whatever them dollars are is going to be used on the roads. So, yeah, I have concerns. I live on a paved road and I've got concerned about it too, because it's flying apart. It's just another road to be. So, we had a very respectful bunch of people here tonight for your presentation. Thank you.
So my concern is not about, per se, right now about capital dollars. It's about you properly using the allocated operational dollars.
Okay.
that noted, and we will definitely take that into account and work on it. With the shared services, I believe that will be something where there will be a sizable gain in some of the knowledge on proper maintenance. People that are experienced. Okay. I think we will move ahead into the reports. 6.1. Okay, in the consent application, 6.1.1. Laura, you want to give your report on this consent application?
So good evening, everyone. This is an application to sever surplus farm residents made by John and Ruth Haynes for their property on Amberley Road. And it is recommended that this application be recommended for approval. This application proposes to sever off a surplus farm dwelling on a proposed parcel of 1.1 acres within a current existing house and shed. And the retained farmlands would be approximately 98.2 acres and remain their continuing use as farmland. This application was originally circulated in late February. The comments were received from the Huron County Health Unit that stated they could not support the application as originally circulated because the existing septic system was not entirely contained within the proposed severed parcel, and there was not enough room for a replacement system for future use. So the proposed severed parcel dimensions were amended by the applicant, and it was recirculated after receiving notice from the health unit that this met their satisfaction and they could provide their support for this application.
no other comment to receive for this application. It is consistent with the provincial policy statement and the existing policies for lot creation. The application meets the criteria in the North Huron official plan for a surplus dwelling severance, and it's currently designated agriculture, natural environment limited protection, and extractive resources. The subject property is located within a secondary no constraints aggregate deposit, and as part of the complete application for this proposed severance, it was required to have an aggregate impact assessment completed. The assessment was to determine the impact on the existing aggregate deposit if this severance was approved. Once completed, the aggregate impact assessment stated that there did not appear to be a significant aggregate deposit in the proposed severed area, and since the existing house was constructed prior to 1950, there would be no change in land use or new development as a result of this severance, and therefore there would be no new or additional constraints to the surrounding aggregate resources should they ever be extracted. So this application, the property is currently zoned AG1 General Agriculture, and if this severance is recommended for approval, the subject property will be automatically rezoned with the severed property to AG4-9 and the retained farmlands to AG2. So it does conform to the North Huron official plan and is recommended for approval with the conditions included in the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. The suggested motion is that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby recommends approval of the consent application file B72, 2015, owner John and Ruth Haynes, 39721 Amberley Road, part north, part lot 40, concession 14, East Wallenosh, Township of North Huron. With the conditions Laura noted. Do I have a mover? Deputy Reeve Campbell and Councillor Hallahan. Any discussion? All in favor? Carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Nothing from finance. The BIA budget report 6.2.1. Donna, do you have a comment on that?
Sure. So the both BIA budgets are attached and we're as part of your package. Just to note in the Wingham BIA budget, and I mentioned it earlier, this is the year that they're going to purchase their snowflake lights at a cost of $29,132. So that's been included in your budget. And then that was offset from a transfer from reserves that North Huron was holding for them of $9,200 and a transfer of their own money of $19,932. So their levy is actually $26,000. Their total budget revenue and expense equals at $55,632. So I don't see any problems there, and recommending that one get adopted. With first that the budget get adopted, and secondly that council approves the transfer from reserve for the $9,200. For the Blythe BIA budget, the budget that we have is strictly for the $6,600, which is the levy amount and how the levy amount is going to be spent. The first budget that we saw, though, was more extensive and did include the other projects like Street Fest and some of those things. Now I do realize that the marketing coordinator has been taking out of both the revenue and expense, but anyway, this budget doesn't include like a lot of the Street Fest projects or things like that. So I guess I'm wondering if those are going ahead this year or whatever. Okay, so what I would suggest then is we recommend this budget as presented, subject to some further information from the BIA then to confirm that these other activities are taking place. This part, as I said, pertains to the levy part only, but my understanding is that they were doing some other things as well.
Yeah, there are a couple of projects, but they're pretty much self-supporting. And one that was a deficit when the previous year has been discontinued, so, but I'll make sure that BIA forwards to you the information on, you want those budgets as well?
Well, we'll adopt this budget as is, and then they can revise it to add in other of their own fundraising revenue and expenses that would be in addition to this, and doesn't affect the levy.
I think they were under the misinterpretation, they were advised to just provide a budget that covered strictly their levy portion, and I kind of questioned at the time, but I wasn't party to the meeting, so I guess we'll just have to clarify that for them for next year, again, for the new treasurer.
And I would certainly make myself available for any at budget time to work with the treasurer in order to be able to compile their budget. Absolutely, I would help out if that would be of any assistance.
Sure. Okay.
Okay, the suggested resolution that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby accepts the 2016 BIA Budget Submission Report dated April 18th, 2016, presented by the Director of Finance. And further, the Council adopts the 2016 Wingham BIA budget and the 2016 Blythe BIA revised budget as presented. And further, the council adopts the transfer from reserves in the amount of $9,200 for the Wingham BIA streetlight project, and this will be included in the 2016 budget. Councillor Sight and Councillor Ritzman-Taninga. All in favor? Carried. Moving to 6.2.2, Patrick Street reconstruction. Do you or Kelly want to make any comments? Kelly, do you want to make any comments on Patrick Street reconstruction?
Actually, Donna would have the figures on that.
Donna? Donna wants it.
Yes, please. So I have the project tender results included in your agenda packages. We opened the tenders through RJ Burnside, and I've given you the background information just to remind you that this project was previously tendered in 2015. So the low bid, which has been, their contract has been reviewed by our engineer and therefore part of the recommendation that the Township of North Huron accept the recommendation from RJ Burnside to accept the tender submitted by Latest Contracting Limited in the amount of $310,564.50, including HST for the Patrick Street reconstruction project, subject to the execution of the necessary documentation. So in the 2016 budget, we have $325,000 net of HST, and that is allocated to road, storm, water, and sewer. In addition to that, though, I would request that we are also, I've just received the authorization to proceed for the engineering portion of that project as well. So if I could have a second motion, the first motion to adopt the tenders as submitted by the engineer, and the second one, an authorization to proceed from Burnside for the costs. Their costs are estimated at $14,000.
For the first, moving the first motion?
Yes, for discussion purposes.
Okay, and get seconding. Go ahead.
Yes, Reeve. So I guess my question is that we have in the budget basically 45,000 more than what the, or no, sorry, 15,000. Sorry. Is that correct? Am I reading that right? 15,000 over above the tender. It's net. This is net of HST, meaning it's HST is included or not included? That's not included.
HST, yeah, net of HST is after we get our rebate back.
So yeah, so okay, so that would be 45,000 with HST included, right? I guess my question is, where is the overage? Where are we allocating that to, or is that just gonna go back into reserves?
Well, once we get, we're right up around the 300,000, and then depending on what, like we have this 279 plus the engineer's estimate of 14. So that takes us to 294. And so we only have 325. So we've got about 25,000 for contingency if anything goes wrong there.
So this is where my question is that, or at least my comment is, if the contingency doesn't happen or isn't required, we budgeted, we taxed for this money, I think we need to be putting that amount into reserves to suffice the construction or the tar and chip conversation about East Wallinash Ward.
And that's what we always do. At the end of the year, we always bring you that complete listing of any projects that were underspent, and then we ask that they be moved forward to whatever project at that time.
Right. I guess my question though is that the reason I'm commenting on it is that I don't want it lost. It needs to be documented that for that particular money, that savings or that under budget, let's earmark it for East Wallinash Ward to suffice the additional operating costs or training or whatever the case needs be to reduce our liability risk in that ward with those regards to those roads. So let's ensure that becomes a priority in some of that stuff.
Right. We'll be monitoring that all year, so
Okay.
we definitely have these discussions for sure.
Okay, any other discussion or comment on the motion on the floor? All those, James?
Do we have a start time? Once construction is end time? Every time? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, construction needs to be finished before. Okay. But as far as the start time, Don, we don't have a start time either.
No, they haven't really said, but it was depending on this weather that we've just had. As soon as things dry up and they can start mobilization, then they can start working pretty much anytime.
Okay, all those in favor of the motion? Carried. And second
The
part of
second,
that?
yes, the second part of it was that council provides staff the authorization from RJ Burnside to proceed with the engineering portions of the Patrick Street reconstruction project.
So moved.
Councillor Vodden, Councillor Syke. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried. So maybe I'll use the right one next. Okay, 6.3.1 Blythe Memorial Community Center. For the work to be done there. Trevor?
I just take it that this is for information purposes only, and there's something coming on the May. That's the way I took it.
Pat?
So the last schedule that council had approved would have us here today, seeing the agreements, signing them, and moving forward to tender tomorrow. So I'm now sharing with you that we will not achieve that deadline, and it's really just a matter of all of the logistics behind the scenes to get those agreements in place and bring them here for council's review. So in order to not keep coming back every 2 weeks, this is the new recommended schedule. And yes, my hope is by the May 2nd and the May, I think it's 16th or whatever that Tuesday is, we will continue to update you with the actual agreements and drafts and pieces of information that you need, so that on the May 16th, we will be approving the project, assuring us that the funding is in place, and tendering on May 17th.
So moved.
Councillor Vauden seconding. Any other comments? All those in favor? Carried. Six 3.2, snowmobile use of Blythe Greenway Trail. The Council of the Township of North Huron hereby approve the expense to have our North Huron lawyer revise the standard agreement for snowmobile club use of the trails and present this revised agreement to North Huron Snowmobile Club for their consideration in order to use the Blythe Greenway Trail.
So moved.
Councillor Vauden, Councillor Knott. All in favor? Carried. Okay, do you have any comment, Kelly, or do you want me to read the motion first?
I think it's pretty self-explanatory.
That the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby accepts the budget estimates for the 2016 monitoring and supplemental work at North Huron landfill sites from Burnside and Associate Engineers. And further, that the Council of the Township of North Huron authorize pre-budget approval with the amounts to be included in the 2016 budget. Councillor Knott moves. Councillor Syke. Any comments on it, or Councillor Hallahan?
So Kelly, I guess when I'm looking at 2016, it's going to cost us $21,225, and that's for just for the monitoring for the 1 year. With that same, I'm just saying that same monitoring would be if it was open. I know it's
It
closed.
just extends the life of the monitoring the longer that the landfill is open. So if you have the landfill open, and the monitoring will not stop if the landfill was closed and kept closed for an extended period of time. If that doesn't make any sense. Monitoring is ongoing, whether it's open or closed, but there is an end date.
And that's only by what they find. You don't have a year as to when it's done.
Brock?
I'd just like to make a comment, a general comment. I don't have any specific problem with this issue, but it seems to me that the service that we're getting from our engineers ought to include a suggestion now and then on how we could save some money or how we could do things better. We've been dealing with these engineering firms for decades, and rarely have they ever made a recommendation of things that we could question about the Ministry of the Environment and their ridiculous regulations at times. And actually, it seems to me our engineers should be supporting us in a lot of issues. So I just like to have some way of jogging the memory of the engineers that they are our employees and they're supposed to be providing a service rather than just telling us what we have to do and how much it's going to cost.
Okay. Trevor?
We can't do it without them.
Yeah,
We can't do it without the engineering
We're
firms.
obligated.
We're obligated to have them.
Have their reports.
The conversation, though, I think, as Councillor Gladden says, I think a conversation with our engineer might be appropriate to at least ask the question and at least hear what their response needs to be about those types of things. I don't know if it has something to do with their liability, if they provide a recommendation that's not in the right interest. I don't know. I guess it would be interesting to hear back from our engineering firm to know why, or if they have provided some suggestions and maybe we haven't followed them. I don't know that. I guess the question is, it begs the question, and then a response would be nice to hear to see what reasons or lack thereof it might be efficient.
Councillor Bud.
We've had these discussions with face to face, and I think they have an idea of some of our feelings on these issues.
Okay.
Keep trying.
Okay, motion on the floor. All in favor? Carried. Yeah, okay. Uh, 6.6.1, the update to the fire department. And there's a resolution that the Township of North Huron hereby revise bylaw 73, 2009.
I'll move it.
And any discussion? All in favor? Carried. And this is a request for a resolution, or that the council of the Township of North Huron hereby write a letter for the East Wabash 150th Committee to support their application for Huron Heritage funding for the History Committee project.
I move this.
Okay, Bowden, Deputy Lee Campbell. All in favor? Carried. And 6.7.2, the Wingham Farmers Market. That the council of the Township of North Huron hereby direct staff to prepare a land use agreement for the purpose of the Wingham Farmers Market as an authorizing bylaw. And further, the council of the Township of North Huron consider the Farmers Market Group a community group and allow them to rent Crookshank Park for the duration of the 2016 season at the community rate. Do I have a mover? It's Taninga and Sipe seconding.
You have a comment, though.
Go ahead.
So I have no issue with the farmer's market and where I think actually that this is a better location for them. What I do have a concern with is that I happen to be floating through social media, and it seemed to be that they've already designated the spot as that's where it's going to be prior to coming here. So I have a bit of a concern about, you know, if you want to market something, you might want to be asking for permission before you market something. I think it's a great place. I think it's a great place for it. It's better visibility, better. But I think it's just a conversation of, you know, you might want to ask for permission before you market that it's going to be there. It probably is a slam dunk, but I think that's the comment I have from a marketing standpoint.
Brock?
It seems to me it was there a number of years ago. Was it not? I seem to recall some sales going on in that part, but I may be wrong.
Not in the last 10 years that I can recall.
Oh, okay, that's maybe longer.
All in favor of the motion? Carried. And 6.7.3, the shared services draft, that the council of the township of North Huron hereby approves the draft shared services agreement with the municipality of Morris Turnberry. And further, that the clerk is instructed to prepare a bylaw to ratify the agreement at the May 2nd, 2016 council meeting. Councillor Knott moving, Deputy Reeve Campbell seconding. Any discussion? As part of that group, I think it has went along very well, and that I think it's a very good thing to be doing moving forward in that shared services. I will ask for the question. All in favor? Carried. And moving to correspondence, is there any points that council would like brought forward for more discussion or? Okay. We'll go through them. 7.1, the Lewis Flower 80th anniversary. There's the request there, so we need a resolution that the council of the township of North Huron hereby approves the request from Alan Dixon to close Francis Street in Wingham from Diagonal Road to Victoria Street from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. on May 14th, 2016 for the Lewis Flowers 80th anniversary celebration. And further, that emergency services be notified, and further, that Mr. Dixon ensures all events with the exception of the car show take place on private property. Mover? Yolanda? Seconder? Or Trevor? Any discussion? No?
I just want, we had sent that to Pat and Kelly, just to make sure. So that met all the questions we asked, and I assume the car show is not a problem.
Yeah, Mr. Dixon actually came into us and explained it all and explained it to Kathy, and we've discussed it, and we're comfortable with the resolution here.
Good.
All in favor? Carried. 7.2, Habitat for Humanity, that the council of the township of North Huron adhere to North Huron fee waiving policy and decline the request to waive fees for the rental of the Blythe Arena Hall for Thursday, April 28th for the annual general meeting of Habitat for Humanity, Huron County, and that the group be charged the community rate as a discount for the rental rate. Moving Councillor Knott and Councillor Hallahan seconding. All in favor? Carried. 7.3, Huron Hospice request. The resolution would be that the council of the township of North Huron hereby decline the request from Huron Hospice, and further that council consider the request as part of 2017 budget deliberations. Councillor Knott and Deputy Reeve Campbell. All in favor? Carried. 7.4 from Lori Scott, MPP from Halliburton, and the requested resolution that the council of the township of North Huron hereby supports the recommendation of Laurie Scott, MVP, Halliburton, Kawartha Lakes, Brock, that the Ontario government provide resources for the development of a coordinated approach to help victims of human trafficking, allowing providers of support services and criminal justice system to share information and work collaboratively, and that the Ontario government develop a multi-ministerial province-wide strategy on human trafficking.
I move that we support this.
Seconds. All in favor? Carried. And 7.5, Township of North Stormont. And suggested resolution that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby supports the Township of Stormont's position regarding the extension of natural gas service to the underserviced areas. And further, that the letters of support also be sent to the Premier, the Ontario Energy Board, and Ministers of Economic Development, Employment and Infrastructure, Energy, and Agriculture and Rural Affairs. Do I have a mover? Councillor Hallahan, Deputy Reeve Campbell. Any discussion? All in favor? Carried. Farmers Market 7.6 was dealt with earlier. Okay, moving into 8.1.
Excuse me? It wasn't dealt with earlier. There was a second letter that was submitted to the farmers market. I'm guessing you don't have it in your packages?
No.
Yes, I have.
This is one. It's here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is Crookshank in fact the same one?
Yeah, but within the resolution that we met, it says further, the council township consider Farmers Market Community Group allow them to rent Crookshank Park for the community rates. We kind of already dealt with it. I know your letter's asking for a reduction.
Right.
We've already kind of addressed that. And get a community rate. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That it was combined in the motion that wasn't exactly. The motion that was passed, the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby direct staff to prepare a land use agreement for the purpose of a Wingham Farmers Market as an authorized bylaw. And further, that the Council of the Township of North Huron consider Farmers Market Group a community group and allow them to rent Crookshank Park for the duration of the 2016 season at the community rate. Trevor?
So what this letter states is that they had the rent at the past location free of charge. The way I interpret this letter is that's what they would like at Crookshank Park. That's not what we've motioned against. So that's the question, I think, is what Matt is commenting to.
Do you want to
I can speak to this, absolutely. So when when the parking lot was used in the previous year, it was their first year, it was not a space that we rented typically, and council permitted their use at no charge. Since that time, council has passed a fee waiving policy, and Crookshank Park is a space that has a fee attached to it, and so staff's recommendation is to adhere to the policy. However, inside that policy, it didn't define whether or not the Wingham Farmers Market would be considered, it was not on the list of what were acceptable community groups. So we included that in the motion for council to accept that they are a community group. and to rent them at the community rate. In the report, it also explained that only council has authority to deviate from policy. If they choose to waive the fee, that is something that you can do at this table. And that was inside the report in the discussion points for your consideration.
So if you go to the William BIA budget, back to that, there is a line in there for the farmer's market for $500. May I ask Jim a question through you or Matt? Would you use that money then to go towards the rental cost, or did you have another thing that you were going to use that money towards?
We were going to use that towards signage and promotion and marketing.
Okay.
Yeah. The hope was that council would waive the fee, and if council's not in a position to do that, then we would approach the private sector and see if we could raise it that way, trying to avoid that. That's a situation that we're faced with.
How many vendors do you have for this year?
To answer Trevor's question earlier, we've been waiting to announce the location of the new market. And I should apologize for the jump ahead there. There was a bit of a misunderstanding. My impression was that tonight's meeting was about discussing the fee, not about the location. So until we've had the new information, we haven't sent out the vendor application formally yet. We anticipate averaging 7 or 8 vendors. We think that's a conservative estimate. It's what we averaged last year. We're hopeful of that being the second year, the word is out, being in a better location might help bump those numbers up a little bit, but best case scenario would probably be 10, 12 vendors.
And would those 10 to 12 vendors help cover that rental cost or not?
Yeah, so they're charged about a $15 fee for every week of the farmer's market. So we use that money towards all of our operating expenses, most of which are for insurance and for farmer's market and CRM membership. Yeah, and the hope is that after this year, we will be in a position to pay the full user fee next year, with another year under our belt and knowing what the new location will do for the market.
I'm taking it the council has spoken already on that and given the community rate rather than a full rental rate from some people that wouldn't be connected to the community. So that moving to 8.1, the Reeves activity report, that there is considerable work being done, especially on the joint services committee and the things that it entails as to working out all the intricacies, and we're, I think, getting closer in the interview process for a Director of Public Works. That is work ongoing. Moving to the request by members of council, 8.3. Councilor Knott.
I just want to make a statement that I'm glad that we passed the support for the hospital, and that that was a rather contentious issue. But I think that sometimes we get we've got a lot of email, a lot of support from the committee that's raising money, but there were a lot of people, I think, in the community who misunderstood the situation with funding for hospital projects. And hopefully that will be addressed and explained to them properly in the media. At the same time, I want to state that there was a comment made by someone in the media that there were councillors here who were determined to see certain projects fail. Specifically the 1419 project and the brewery. To the best of my knowledge, there is no counselor or staff member, including myself, who wishes to see either one of those projects fail. However, as a council, it is our responsibility to make sure that things are done correctly in a proper manner, and that we protect the municipality and all the taxpayers within it in their best interests. And that is what we've strived to do. Sometimes it may not appear that way because the public and including the media and others are not necessarily subject to information that is presented to council, which is done in closed meetings for specific reasons. And that is unfortunate because they may then understand far better what's involved. And I just hope that the media would continue to report the facts as opposed to opinions in the future. But that this council and myself and everyone here that I know in this room that works for this municipality supports those projects fully, as long as they continue to comply and meet the requirements and those things that we've asked of them. Thank you.
Anything else in Counselor? Okay. Oh, go ahead, Bill.
There was one thing that I wanted to bring forward, and it relates to the 14-19 construction project next year. There have been several community groups that rent the hall, in Memorial Hall, either in the basement or portions thereof, for certain things. And a pick an example would be the Legion Bingo once a month, who are going to be displaced. And another group, I just happened to bump into the lady today who expressed concern about where they were going to go. I would like to put forward that we give all of those community groups the option, or any group that wishes to use another North Huron facility, say the Blythe Community Hall, the Blythe Arena upstairs, and we give it to them at the same rate they would have paid for the Blythe Memorial Hall. This is for community groups, not private individuals, but I would actually like to put that forward as a motion that we do that and proceed to make sure those community groups can continue their projects and their programs through the construction period.
That's notice of motion for next meeting.
Can we put that as a notice of motion for the next meeting that we do that? Okay, appreciate that. Okay, thank you.
Could you submit the wording to that so we can get it on the agenda, or just email me and confirm that? So that
Yeah, I think I know how I would like to see it worded, so I'll send that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, moving to 9.0, notice of motion. Brock, do you have something you'd like to say?
First of all, I'd like to apologize to council and to the general public about my very misleading notice of motion. Last meeting, I got distracted, and it's probably a product of my age. I'm too young to really know how to do these things. But the problem was that I indicated what information I thought we needed to collect, but I neglected to say why. So naturally, many people concluded that I was going to recommend that we close all the arenas and just have an end of that. No more hockey, no more ice, whatever. That's the farthest from my thought. I want to just say a word about what, and I'm not going to put the motion tonight because I've talked to some of my colleagues, and I think we've got enough on our plate now. Staff are swamped with a lot of projects going on. So I think we could postpone this for a little while, but I just want to say a word about my proposal. We have 2 arenas in North Huron. They're both used a small number of hours. It's very expensive putting ice in the arenas. So what I'm suggesting that we look at and evaluate is a process whereby we put ice in one arena 1 year and not in the other, and then reverse that the next year. So we're in fact only putting ice in one arena each year. And the groups that are displaced by not having ice in their location and then book time in the other arena. So we have more ice occupation in each arena when the ice is in, and of course none in the other. So it's a proposal for saving money, and I think with all of the budget pressures that we have now, we very much need to find savings. Other communities have done this. Some people say it's unfair. I'd have to drive to Wingham, I'd have to drive to Blythe, that sort of thing. I just want to tell a little story. When we lived in a city, our oldest son signed up for a power skating course. And his ice time was 7 a.m. Sunday morning. So every Sunday morning, we had to leave the house at 6 a.m., drive down to the center of the city, which is farther than going from Wingham to Blythe, and for his 7 o'clock ice time. And that was par for the course. And I think that's true of a lot of communities. So it's just a suggestion that at some future time, I think we should evaluate and see if it's feasible. That's all I have to say on that.
Okay. Moving to 10.1, bylaw number 42, 2016. Being a bylaw to authorize the reading clerk to sign on behalf of council an agreement for operation, maintenance, and management services by and between the corporation of the Township of North Huron and Viola Water Canada, Inc. be introduced, read a first and second time. Deputy Reeve Campbell, Councillor Knott, all in favor? Carried. Sharon.
Before you pass it a third time, I did try to jot down some notes very quickly to try to address some of the things that Sean has brought forward. So I know that he talked about the 7 reasons that were in my report, and he individualized them and gave a rebuttal for those 7 reasons, and it wasn't any one of those 7 reasons individually. It was a combination of the 7 reasons that council really decided to look at a single source contract at this point. You had talked about contracting Veolia to be the overall responsible operator after our chief operator left us. And our existing staff did not want that responsibility, and so we had to act very quickly. Legislatively, we are required to have an overall responsible operator. With Don Nicholson going to Veolia, that was a very quick solution for us to be able to contract them, and they provided Don to us to act as that overall responsible operator, as well as John Graham during that time. So we really did need a very quick transition on that. Over the course of the past few months, they have not only provided support in taking on that overall responsible operator role, but they have actually provided a lot of support via Don, continuing to work on capital projects that were on the slate, and Don had the past knowledge of that. So it was very helpful for us to be able to continue on with that. You mentioned additional costs for overtime and what those costs were going to be. This contract provides 24/7 coverage, and there are no additional costs for after-hours call-ins, unless for some reason there was going to be a tremendous, amount of out-of-scope services that we would have to call them in for. But a routine call-in for an alarm, there are no additional charges for that. You mentioned about capital. This is an operation and maintenance contract. It's not capital oversight, and to my knowledge, I don't know of any operation and maintenance contracts that actually do include capital. However, we have had a discussion with Veolia because our existing staff does do capital work. But that has been a problem for us the last number of years because we have not allocated a proper amount of resources to be able to complete our capital projects. So We said we were going to complete capital projects in a year, and then maintenance took over, and next thing you know, we're having to put money back in reserve. We didn't have enough resources to get our capital projects done. Veolia will allow us to have some staff resources to do capital projects. However, maintenance comes first because this is an operation and maintenance contract. So they are going to look at our capital plans for the beginning of every year and decide whether they have sufficient staff resources to allocate to capital. If they don't, then we will be contracting it out, and that's what we should have been doing anyway, so that we could get our capital work done if we didn't have sufficient resources to do that. You mentioned using some of our own equipment. That relates to our flushing truck, and that again is current status quo for the operations that we have. We own a flushing truck in our Public Works Department. We share it back and forth with the Utilities Department, and it's an internal transfer. So we're just continuing that working relationship between our Public Works staff and the Utilities staff to complete maintenance work, respond to water main breaks, that sort of thing. So it's just a continuation of the existing relationship. You mentioned about the inspection for the city, and again, that would be a service that would be third-party expertise. So that really is the responsibility of the township to be contracting out that report and inspection of the standpipe. Because I've been here just a year, the previous inspection wasn't in my time here, but to my knowledge, the condition of the standpipe just came forward in this recent inspection, and we haven't seen that in any previous inspection. So I don't think it's fair to elude that Veolia had any responsibility in that, because it's our responsibility to do that inspection and then act on it. It is a capital project, so it will be one that we will be overseeing, and that will be the new director of Public Works overseeing that project. We did look at some options for restructuring with the existing staff, but again, realizing that we have an existing complement of 3, we were going to have to add an overall responsible operator, looking at the shared service arrangement and adding someone at the director level to begin to start addressing our asset management issues, our long-term planning, which frankly we have not adequately addressed. So, and there is the possibility that we are going to be losing operators in the short term. I know in the past I've tried to recruit class 3 operators, and it is not an easy thing. There are not an abundance of them out there, and with the potential of losing 2 of them within the next few years, it's going to put our department into some transition. So to be able to continue in-house, we knew it was going to take some work, and quite frankly, the workload really was one of the biggest issues that we had to look at. Right now, we are starting the implementation stage of our shared service project, and I cannot express to council the amount of work this is going to be over the next few years to put this all together. I don't think, unless you really start sitting down at that implementation table and looking at the level of detail we have to get into, from, what happens when they pick up the phone and they call the township and they need a building permit, and now the building inspector is located in the Marsh Turnberry office. There is a lot of IT issues that we have to sort out. We're going to be looking at the logistics of our files and how we share all that, how we do the books. Through this, we're going to be looking at all of our policies, procedures, standard operating procedures. I heard mentioned tonight about our level of service policies. We're going to need to look at our levels of service policies and make sure that they're consolidated between the 2 municipalities. So it is a tremendous amount of work on our plates over the next 3 years. We know that in year 3, we're saying that we're going to look at our administration as well. That's part of our concept report. And so things are just beginning. Everything is on the table here right now in North Huron. And, it is important that we have one area that is somewhat stable because of the breadth of work that is ahead of us. So I'm sorry if I didn't answer all of your questions, but I would be happy to take a copy of that and we can have further discussion, and I can I can try to answer any of the other concerns that you brought forward. Oh, one other, sorry, just a last note. We did look, Veolia said they would go with a shorter term. And we did discuss that at the last meeting. They were quite willing to be open and flexible to allow council to go out to an RFP sooner if they chose. And the reason they went, council debated it and decided to go with a 5-year term was because our shared services project has a 3-year term. So it's going to take us that amount of time to work through that. So they didn't want to be ending this contract and looking into RFP or doing something different coinciding at the end of our shared service project, and then also with the term of council. So they felt that they would go with the 5-year term, get the new council in, let them get their feet wet, understanding where we're at with the shared services, and who knows at that point, because it is really a work in progress. And so they did opt to go with the 5-year term, with the ability to go out to an RFP. But there is an annual opportunity for renegotiation within the contract. So those are just some of the things that I wanted to try to address at this time.
Okay. The bylaw number 42, 2016, being a bylaw to authorize the Region Clerk to sign on behalf of council an agreement for operations, maintenance, management services by and between the Corporation of the Township of North Huron and Viola Water Canada, Inc., to be read a third and final time, signed by the Region Clerk, and to be engrossed in the bylaw book. Councillor Wadden, Councillor Knott. Anything else? All in favor? Carried. And moving to bylaw 43, 2016, being a bylaw to amend bylaw number 5, 2016, to appoint boards of management for the Blythe Business Improvement Area and the Wingham Business Improvement Area, be introduced, read a first and second time. Do I have a mover? Councillor Knott and Councillor Ritzman-Tenenga. All in favor? Carried. And that bylaw number 43, 2016, being a bylaw to amend bylaw number 5, 2016, to appoint boards of management for the Blythe Business Improvement Area and the Wingham Business Improvement Area, be read a third and final time, signed by the Region Clerk, and engrossed in the bylaw book. Councillor Wadden and Councillor Hallahan, all in favor? Carried. Announcements? Any business? And is closed session. Moving to 13.0, a motion to go into closed session. Councillor Wadden, Councillor Knott, all in favor? Okay, we will have a short recess.